Welcome to Monday's mobility snack. We'll just need a wall and a towel and our blanket for today. And we're actually going to start standing up at the wall. This practice is going to be a minimal time investment, but I hope it will be impactful for you. So we're going to work on a little spinal segmentation with some different feedback against the wall. So instead of having your heels very close to the wall, let's bring the feet out maybe 6 inches or so. Could be a little more, could be a little less. But we do want to get the back side of the pelvis connected and the upper spine. The head could be a little bit away from the wall, but it could also be pressing back if that feels more comfortable for you. And we're just going to try to establish pretty natural back curves. So if having your head back touching the wall feels weird, let go of that and just keep the pelvis connected and also the thoracic region. Uh-oh. We lost Joan, but she's coming back. So this is a time to notice the amount of curvature that you have in the lumbar spine. For me, if I get the back of my pelvis connected and the back of my ribs connected, I still have a gap between the wall and my low back where I could like slide my hand partially through. And so I'm just noticing that natural presentation of my spine. And I'm going to try to keep my upper back relatively still. I'm going to try to keep my head relatively still, and then we'll work into some subtle pelvic tucks and tilts. So you're going to drop your tailbone underneath you and try to see if the lumbar spine comes in any closer to the wall, and then begin to tip your pelvis forward towards your toes, and your low back might arch away from the wall a little bit more. So just rock your pelvis a few more times. And see if you're noticing any shifting in the shoulders or shoulder blades or the head or the neck, and try to quiet that down. I like a little bend in my knees, but there wouldn't be anything wrong with having your legs straight. And then let's find what feels like neutral in the lower body, everything below your ribs. And then with your arms either hanging by your side or wrapped around your upper torso, you're going to start to flex into the upper back like you would do a core crunch, and then rise back up and place your shoulders and your ribs back against the wall. And you might be tempted here to really tuck the chin and flex your cervical spine, your neck, but let's try to minimize that area and isolate everything above the navel but below the neck, like from shoulders to navel, we're crunching, and then rising back up to extension vertical. I like to use imagery anytime I'm moving my spine, especially into that forward flexion position, which is a little bit more challenging for me to find. Especially my lower back, but here I'm imagining that I'm rolling my spine over a ball that's located in front of my body. Curling down and then rising up. Now we're going to keep the head and the upper back against the wall. Tuck your pelvis under again so you feel your low back press into the ground, and then try to lift your hips off of the wall and send your hips away from the wall. So it feels almost like bridge pose, but against the wall. And then lower back down. See if you can go into kind of an articulation. So it feels like the uppermost part of the spine lands first and then the sacrum lands last. Let's do 3 little wall bridges. Keep your shoulders nice and soft and relaxed. Finding that connection of the gluteals and maybe even the uppermost hamstrings to extend your hips forward in space. Last 2. And one more time. And then we're going to keep sacrum against the wall for as long as we can. Now do tuck your chin, do flex your neck. Once you maximize your neck flexion, start to flex your upper spine. Curl over that big beach ball and start to roll down into a forward fold, one piece at a time. You'll get to a certain threshold where you feel like you can't go any further unless your pelvis starts to move. So you can start to feel your tailbone lifting and the front of your pelvis rolling over your thighs to just find a nice, easy forward bend dangling over your legs. Take an inhale to the back ribs. And exhale, soften, relax, and let go. Bend your knees just a little bit. Drive through your feet. And now initiate a roll up through flexion from your tailbone, from your pelvis. Try to tuck your tailbone towards your heels. And as the pelvis starts to neutralize, the lumbar spine can flex and stack vertebra by vertebra. That was a tongue twister. And then the lumbar, trying to stick back into the wall. The thoracic spine is connecting to the wall. Back of the shoulder blades, and then maybe eventually the head. We're going to do that again. We're just going to keep flowing, rolling the spine down segment by segment. Trying to observe any sticky spots that feel like they aren't able to articulate independently. For me, that's basically my whole lumbar spine. It feels like it moves in one big piece. Pausing in the dangle. And then finding a connection to the front core to keep flexion as you roll your way up back to standing. Tucking under with the bottom. Staying in that coiling action on the front side for as long as you can. And then finding upright. One more time, tuck and roll from the neck first. Thoracic peeling away from the wall, one segment at a time. Then the lumbar. Once the lumbar is all the way off the wall, we can start to let the pelvis tip forward. And the whole trunk dangles over the legs. Moving in reverse, initiate from your pelvic tuck under, posterior. Segmenting lumbar vertebra from the bottom, middle, top of the lumbar to the T-spine junction. T-spine up to the shoulder region, and finally the C-spine. And we're back to vertical. And then you can step away from the wall, and now we're going to use our blanket in a little roll or even just a fold, and we're going to lay down on that on our front side. So depending on your body, you're going to bring it to about just below your chest in the middle rib cage. So too low in the ribs and it's going to feel like it's in your stomach, and that might not feel great. But too high, it's going to be in chest tissue, and that might not feel great either. So depending on the size of your chest, you're going to have to kind of wiggle into this and feel what feels right. We're going to start with wide Sphinx arms. And here we're going to keep the upper back relatively still and let the shoulder blades move around a little bit, whatever they want to do here. So they could circle, they could just elevate and depress, or they could retract and protract. And now just lay your whole body over this blanket. Turn your head to one side and let your upper back round a little bit more. We're going to play around with various arm positions to move through some extension. So now we're in a little bit of flexion. And as we come into extension, let's start with the neck, but just keep it really moderate. So turn the head just slightly forward. Lift the chin slightly away from your chest and pause. Now see if you can peel your sternum off of that blanket a millimeter at a time. And as you lift your chest slightly away from the mat, You're going to tuck under with your tailbone again. And think about moving everything above the navel, but contracting through the area that is above where your bra strap would be. So those upper back muscles, shortening and contracting to bring some extension into that upper back. And as you release, you're going to go just as slow in the opposite direction. Lowering from the bottom part of your thoracic and then letting the head drop next. On this round, we're going to bring the arms behind us. So let your arms just rest beside your legs with your palms facing, I like my palms facing open, so my arms are turning inward. But you could also do it palms to the floor. Before we do anything with the upper back, let's re-engage the lower body stability by rooting through the legs, tops of the feet even. Rock the pelvis under. And as you tuck under with your pelvis, you might feel like your navel's coming off the floor, or at least it's kind of pulling into your body. Remember, we're not gripping the abs. We're not sucking our stomach in. We're just going to try to get some upper body extension. So let's start with the neck again. Look slightly forward. Pause there. Now squeeze your shoulder blades together on your back. You might already feel like you're in a little bit more extension. As your arms rest beside you, even pushing into the floor, try to curl your chest away from your mat even more as you maintain a posterior tuck under with your pelvis. Take one more breath in, extension. Tuck your chin. And then start to roll down the spine back to that neutral. Maybe a little bit of a hump in the upper back again. I'll let your shoulders just relax towards the mat. We're going to add in lateral flexion to this movement. You decide how you want your arms. I'm going to keep mine beside me. Lift your chest a little bit. Pin your shoulder blades towards each other. And then try to slide your left fingertips more towards your left heel. And arc your spine into a lateral stretch. Come back to the center. Keep your chest up. And then arc your upper back towards the right. Come back to the center. Do your best to keep even weight in your pelvis and do the same thing again. Curling to the left, center lift, curl to the right. Center lift and hold. This time, perhaps we let the arms come a little higher, shoulder blades even closer, and sternum up just a little bit more for 5, 4, 3, 2, and then slowly relax. Blanket's going to stay in pretty much the same position, but we're just going to roll over onto our backside and let that blanket rest just underneath the bottom edge of the shoulder blades. Arms can reach out to the sides to begin, and we'll just sense some expansion across the front of the chest. And we're going to do just a few head nods to start. As your whole spine stays neutral, we'll just tuck the chin and lift the head slightly off the ground. So only the neck. And lower down. This is my kryptonite. Curl the chin, look forward, but just lift the head. Lower down, and we'll do one more time. Neck flexion. And lower down. Interlace your hands to the back of your head. Let your arms come off the ground as much as they want to. So your elbows can be just landing wherever feels natural for your shoulders. So they could be wide, all the way open. A little bit narrower might help you to find flexion a little bit, because that's where we're going. We're going to keep the pelvis heavy and try to curl that upper back into what feels like an ab crunch or curl up, and then slowly lay it back down. And if having that blanket underneath you is just too intense, get rid of it and do it on your mat. Let's do 5 more. A little bit of a curl, upper back, and roll back down. Last 4. Last 3. Be mindful that the neck is in a good position and the hands aren't pulling the neck along. Just 2 more. Just 1 more. Let's hold this one and reach the arms beyond the legs or just inside the legs. Final couple of breaths. Now, as you have your upper back sort of curled, you can press your elbows down to whatever they can connect to, whether that's that blanket roll or your yoga mat, and then push up away from the floor onto the elbows and finally up onto the palms, and set your blanket off to the side. We're going to do a little cat-cow action, but in this lounging position. Feet can come out wide if that helps you. Arms are reaching back behind you, and we'll let the shoulder blades play along with this. So just a full spine movement, curling into some measure of a back bend, and then bringing in that tuck and rounded aspect to the spine. A lot of times we try to move the spine more wave-like, but I think for this position, it almost works better to try to synchronize every area of the spine to kind of move at the same time. So maybe thinking about moving right from the middle, the sternal area, or the area just below your shoulder blades. Pelvis is rocking right along, tucking and tilting. Last couple. And then our last position is just going to be sitting with legs out in front of us. And you could sit your tush on that blanket roll if you wanted just a little bit more of an anterior pelvic tilt. And on this one, we're going to try to move just the upper back as much as possible, but I have a feeling that it's going to be helpful to free the pelvis to move a little bit as well. So you decide how much you want it to move. We're going to do a front to back pulling motion with the arms, first in a neutral position in the spine. And then let's inhale and flex our upper back. Puff up the mid-thoracic area, reach your arms out in front of you and try to coil in the front side. Now as you start to bend your elbows and row your arms backwards, lift your chest and contract your upper back for a back bend. Keep moving like that. Inhale to flexion. Mostly upper back, but it's okay if the bottom half moves too. Exhale, pull back, curl back. Last one like that. Inhale, scoop forward with the arms, back with the spine. Exhale, row the arms, curl the chest. Now hold this one. Inhale here, and exhale, flex. Let's do 3 more like this. Inhale, extension. Exhale, flexion. Last 2. Final one. Sense how the shoulder blades contribute. Once you finish, let's find our baseline neutral. Hands can land in your lap. Drop your eyes closed for a moment and just pay attention as your body breathes. And that completes our practice. Thanks for joining me, and I hope to see you again soon. Tuesdays, tomorrow, is our Rest and Restore Happier Hour, so maybe I'll see you then. Otherwise, drop me a note. Let me know what you thought of this.